Nadia with Next Best Picture.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Very lovely to meet you too, and I'm very, very excited to be chatting with you today. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
So you've made an incredibly powerful feature debut here, and it feels like a big moment of reintroduction of sorts for moviegoers such as myself, who've gotten to know you firstly as an actor, a brilliant actor, I will add, who are now discovering a new side of your creative self. And I imagine it must have been a fulfilling experience directing for the first time. So how did this opportunity come about? And was it something that you wanted to do for a long time?
You know, it was all really accidental. And so the source, it's sort of, if I think of the magic well, the magic spring from which everything came, it was the memoir that Alexandra Fuller wrote. And I fell so in love with that story and with the characters in that story that, and it paralleled a lot of my life in South Africa, that I thought, I know how to tell this story. And my first thought was I want to act the part of the mother. That was the thing that drew me to it. Then I couldn't find a screenwriter, and I ended up writing it myself and realizing, no, it can't be the mother. She's not the main thing. It's the child. Make the child's point of view. So I put the mother off to the side. And then really, once the screenplay was done, I didn't think I could find someone who could direct it and do what I knew I'd found in the screenplay. So then it became me, and I was terrified. I didn't say at any point in time, I'm going to be the next director of anything, but it sort of evolved over the 6 years that I was writing and finally became apparent. And then in the end, I really sort of almost enjoyed the directing part more than anything. I loved the writing too, but it just was, it's been an enormous surprise in my life. I didn't expect this to happen, and here we are, and I think it's, in some ways, it saved my creative soul by doing it.
Yeah, and speaking to the text by Alexandra Fuller, I'm wondering what were some of the challenges in adapting her text and also incorporating your perspective and the parallels that you found into the screenplay?
Yeah, so I guess the biggest challenge was the scale of the book. So her book starts when she's born and ends up when she's 20-something. Very, very dense, very layered, very complicated back and forth in the narrative. She'll jump time and space and start with her childhood and then go back to her childhood. And so for me, the biggest challenge was, what is the narrative? What is the beginning, middle, and end of the story? And so I wrote many, many drafts of trying to incorporate many, many years. This is a mini-series. It's not a film, until I compressed and made it smaller and tighter until it takes place really over just a couple of days. But then I pulled key events out of her life, key descriptions from her life. And that was then the film that I made.
Yeah, and part of what makes the film so engaging as well is that this is a story of war told entirely from a child's point of view, which is, of course, very different from someone looking back on their childhood. I'm wondering what inspired that particular decision to focus on the child's perspective ultimately.
So as I struggled with the script and struggled, finally there was a shift that happened maybe a year or a year and a half before I started shooting it. I just didn't want to see the story take place as an outsider looking in. I thought we have to be inside the child, because I knew that with a child performer that voiceover was going to be essential for me because I just know what a 7-year-old can and can't do. And I thought we're going to have to use some trickery. We're going to have to use voiceover to cover things, to tell the story. But more importantly, I thought the only way we as an audience can witness what's happening in the war or understand what that moment in time with colonialism is we have to hear the child talking about the things she believes to be true because of what she's heard. So she became the mouthpiece for the racists, basically, which then could show, well, there's a 7-year-old spouting with great confidence her theories about race and people and who's better and, who's entitled to a last name. And I think that shift really is what locked the final screenplay into place. And thank God I did it, because I just don't think it would be palatable to anybody if I hadn't made it from the kids' point of view.
Absolutely. It was such an incredible and very powerful storytelling decision, because through her dialogue, you're really understanding what she's observing, what she's hearing, how casual the racism was, how it was mirrored through generations as well.
Yeah, exactly. The casual racism of everyday conversation and just the things she would drop in that are so sort of abhorrent to us. But the point is, that's how you'd illustrate. Almost just one of those statements would then illustrate what has the last 20 years of fighting been about, because people think like that.
Absolutely. And speaking to the child performance, Lexi Venter is an absolute revelation as Bobo and a first-time actor, which is so unbelievable. I'm curious to know, what were you looking for in that casting process, and what qualities of Lexi kind of made her the right fit for this, for the character?
So I was looking for a kid who had never acted before. I honestly have worked with kids before, and I've seen how they pick up habits, and I auditioned a few kids that were actors, and I was just like, no. This has to be a child who's wild and free, doesn't even know a camera's on her. In fact, many was the time I'd see her looking into the lens and looking at her own reflection. She wasn't really aware of what was happening. I sort of made it about play. I sort of kept it about, we're playing a game. I'd give her toys to play with. I'd give her lines to say. I'd say it like this or say it like this. And I did not give her the script, because when she started to run lines with her mom and learned script back and forth, then I was like, crap, that doesn't work. So then I'd rewrite it and say, let's try it like this. You say this line, I'll say this, and just throw a line at her. So the thing with her is she's just an open, free, completely very expressive, very bright little girl. And she hasn't been spoiled in any way. And so for me, it was just the perfect... remember in The Godfather, Brando is holding that cat in his hands in that one scene? That was the perfect cat. It was a very relaxed, loose, playful sort of batting at him. It was the perfect, wild, exquisite creature that it was the perfect thing to do that. And in many ways, Lexi's wild, unspoiled self was the perfect thing for this.
Yeah, she's absolutely brilliant, as is the rest of the cast as well, and so phenomenal to the point where it does really feel like being a fly on the wall, very much observing the dynamics that are unfolding. And being an actor yourself, I imagine you must have learned so much just through communicating with other actors as well. I'm wondering, how did your acting experiences prepare you in a way for directing and figuring out your approach to actors?
I think a lot of the hard lessons along the way with directors that are not supportive or not generous or not helpful, there's certain cues you don't give as a director. You don't go, can you just do that a bit more, blah, blah, blah. It's the first thing that will make a sensitive soul just shrivel up inside. So it's always about, giving an actor, saying, what's your secret here? What's the secret? If I whisper a secret in your ear as you play this scene, think about that. So giving them anything that encourages and builds them and allows them to blossom, not that breaks them down. And, tempos of scenes, I knew things that needed to move quickly, just sort of being on other sets. But really more as an actor, I think, what if I were longing to have a director work with me again, a good director, what would I be wanting from them? And it would be a certain generosity and kindness.
Absolutely, yeah. One of the other
a vision as well. You want a director that has a point of view and a vision, because otherwise we're all just floundering around. Actors are there waiting for a director to tell them what to do.
And one of the things that stood out about your vision was there's an intimacy to the movement and to the camera angles and the cinematography and just the overall, I suppose, visual landscape of capturing this place. And I'm wondering, could you speak to kind of bringing the setting to life and finding your visual team for the film?
Yes, so I got really lucky. I knew I needed a South African cinematographer who understood the landscape. I found a fantastic set designer who, on a shoestring, when I tell you the sniff of an oil rag, we made this film. We had no money. And my own experience as a child living in a household in somewhat decay, in a society sort of in decay, is I remember so much the visuals around me. And it's the sort of thing as a child and then as a young adult that filled me with so much shame. Is I just thought, I remember dirty feet, I remember bitten fingernails, I remember an untidy house. It's all the things that go along with sort of that kind of society and alcoholism and all the rest of it. And I had these imprints in my head. So when I was interviewing people, I said, this is what this has to look like. We have to have the house has to be like it once was something, but it's coming undone the same way that the empire is coming undone. We have to have, we have to feel the heat and the dust, and I don't want it pretty. This is the anti-out of Africa. It can't be out of Africa. It's got to be the grubby side that we never saw when those other films back in the 70s or 80s were made. And I had people around me that really understood what I was trying to say.
Absolutely. And one of the most memorable visual moments is the ending of the film, where we see Sarah's character depicted as the Queen of Zimbabwe. And I'm curious to know if the book had a similar ending, and if not, what inspired the decision to change
No,
it.
it didn't. And for the
Yeah.
longest time, I wrote it just with the ending that they drive away and Sarah's at the bus stop. And I just felt something was missing. I kept going back to it and saying, okay, little Bobo, who wants to make people disappear if they don't show that they love her, and she's so unloved, that she looked back. First I had Sarah not turning, then in her regular clothes. Then I had her turning in her regular clothes. This was all in the screenplay. And one day it hit me. I thought, how do I elevate this into the divine? It was probably around the same time that I've brought in the thread of the mythology. And I thought, that's what I need to do. What does Bobo see when she looks back at this moment in her life? She sees a real queen looking back at her. So, it just was, I knew the minute it descended into my brain, I remember being, got to write this right now. And listen, some people might not like it because it's not in the book. And I think the purists of the book might go, why did you tag that on? But for me, I felt I had to lift. It's not so much lifting that family out of it because they keep staring in the other direction. It's lifting the African woman up and saying, you are the real queen. It's the recognition from that child that is the queen in her life.
Yes, very, very powerfully said. And it also an indication of how confident and singular your direction is as well, to see that moment on screen. And you've really gone on a journey making this film, bringing it to some of the film festivals last year, and now it'll be out in theaters very soon for more audiences to see. And while the story takes place in 1980s Rhodesia, in the stages of becoming Zimbabwe, it also, of course, resonates universally in today's world. And what do you hope for audiences to see and to take away from this film?
Pretty much that. It's like, all the wars that are going on were going on when I was busy filming. And I just remember thinking how many millions of kids are sitting watching this take place, how many kids are being formed and sort of molded by what they're being put through right now. And how are we possibly in the situation where we keep repeating the same thing over and over as humankind? And so it's just that. It's just that I would have everybody, I don't know, the way that I do. I suffer. I can't stand the news, and yet I keep looking into the news and looking at it and hoping that I'll see or read something different. I think it's just that, somewhere we have to stop the progression, the march forward of this. Somewhere we have to change the dialogue within our homes and to our children so that the future is better.
Absolutely. And it's incredible how film in some ways, or in many ways actually, can be such a conversation starter and encourage more people to see and to understand.
Yeah. I hope so.
Yeah. I know that we're reaching the end of our time here. So as we wrap, I wanted to know if there is another book perhaps out there that you would be interested in adapting for the screen, because you did such an incredible job here.
Yes. So there's something I'm circling right now. And again, I keep saying when people are like, what are you doing next? And, sending me scripts. I really have to love it as much as I love this, because I have to devote myself to it. I have to mine it and turn it upside down and turn my world upside down to figure out what I'm trying to say. And I think there's something perhaps with women in different stages of their lives and in an interesting setting. That's sort of what I'm looking to doing. But again, it'll probably take me a little while to write it again. I'm slow. Maybe I'll be quicker this time. And just, again, a meaningful story that I love, because I love this one so much.
Absolutely. And your passion and love for it can be felt on the screen as well.
Thank you.
It was such a pleasure chatting with you today. I really appreciate your time. And thank you so much for joining us here at Next Best Picture.
Thank you.